Behold, it is I, Josh, the Tech Chief. And welcome back, guys, to the Project Freedom Podcast, where I have the liberty and the freedom, by the way, which is a very scarce commodity these days, to discuss whatever the hell it is that I want to discuss. And guys, we have a lot to discuss today. And I really don't know where we should start, but perhaps, guys, allow me to serenade you with the song of my people.
You will own nothing, and you will be happy.
Warning. Your weekly rental smart contract will automatically execute in 72 hours. Please ensure that your personal wallet is appropriately funded. Your scheduled Uber ride share will arrive in 10 minutes. Now arriving at your destination.
我们现在到达您的目的地。
Good morning. Waging number 22177? New transfer?
Yes.
Good. Look up. So what do you think of your new work pod? Pretty nice, right?
Yeah. It's a bit cramped though.
Oof. That's bad speak. I'll let you sort that out. See you at the mandatory chivalry roll call dance later today.
Yikes. You have violated your employment smart contract. Replaying offending speech.
It's a bit cramped though.
This statement is in direct contradiction with the verified Snopes fact that OpenOffice 2.0 work pods are comfortably spacious, combining the safety of closed cubicles with the communal spirit of OpenOffice environments. You have been deducted 20 good boy tokens from your weekly income. Warning. Projected weekly income is insufficient to meet your weekly rental payment. Please ensure that your wallet is appropriately funded within the next 68 hours.
Oh mein Gott. I groomed.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, that was a song of my people. Welcome, guys. I told you guys we had a lot to discuss today. And what are we discussing today? As you guys know, the title is at the end. Is it all over? And it's funny because we had this stream scheduled a while ago, and there's a lot of things that appear to be ending today, isn't there? For my boys out there and girls and sirs and zers out there that have been paying attention. Max Sanitas says, Janet Yellen is a witch. You never know who's watching. Christian Soto, good evening. Harry says, get in KG. That's right, Light. Light's in his wagey cage, guys. Don't worry. TBK says, this is scary. Yep. Max Sanitas, I can't watch. TBK says, really glad are really, really going to be our future. I'm glad to be a developer. We'll always have a career to make ends meet. That is very true, and that is part of what we're going to be discussing tonight. 20 good boy tokens. No, it was all a dream, boys. Danielle in the house says hello. Hello indeed. All right, guys. So what is ending, guys? Obviously, my beard has ended. And by the way, so I tried to shave my beard last night because my beard was turning red and blonde. And I took clippers to it, and what I thought was a 5 on the scale was actually a 3. So as you guys can see, I got a little bit of peach fuzz here now, but it's all good in the hood, my friends. It's all good in the hood. And what else, guys? What else is ending besides my beard? Oh, that's right. If you guys saw the markets today, the crypto markets, well, really pretty much every market for that matter, it was not very, we'll just say it wasn't very delectable to experience, unless, you were there and you're able to take advantage of that. Speaking of taking advantage of things, hopefully going to be giving you guys some good insight on how to do that today with your lives in general. So back to the original topic of what is ending today. Are traditional 9-to-5 jobs ending? I think so, guys. I think a majority of them, I mean, in all honesty, I think a majority of them are already done, kaput. It's done. And we're going to talk about that tonight as well. And I'm not talking about every single 9-to-5 job. All right, guys, just calm down. Don't. I know everyone's already a little overexcited with everything that's been going on, but it's going to be okay. All right, just chill. It's going to be okay. So I'd like to start this conversation with you guys on something that has I guess began to happen. Like, we could say, as far back as like March 2020, okay? And you guys all know the significance of March 2020, don't you? Daniel says, Andrew got a head start on eating the bugs. Yep, no eating the bugs for me. And put the lentils, you guys just mix the bugs with your lentils. It'll be better that way. Usually red beards means Welsh and stretchy. I don't know. Scottish, Irish, anything Celtic or Viking, really. It'd be cool being a Viking, I guess, but I don't know. I don't see our society adopting to AI robots until 2030, 35. I mean, dude, so, I mean, that's something we can cover tonight too, but okay, TBK, I saw that you said that you're a developer in the chat earlier. I mean, we have to write the code for that, right? And you also know that software is only as smart as the person that programmed it, right? So I'm hoping that if we do have AI, that it can be smarter than the people that programmed it, but then that would be an oxymoron, right? So I'm honestly not even completely sure of the extent of the complexity that which like some of this AI can go. I don't know, man. We're gonna have to see. Yes, March 2020 was the coof, my friends. It was the coof. Did the carpet change or just the drapes? The carpet was also refreshed, as we could say, refreshed. Yep. A bowl of stew says, of Welsh descent and have red hairs in my beard, can confirm. Uh-oh. Should I do the DNA in me? 23andMe? I'm 13% victim too. Okay, guys. So March 2020, we saw the coof, right? We saw Crab 17 go on. And what happened, guys? Obviously, there was a toilet paper shortage. Well, it wasn't a real shortage, right? However, people are all up in arms, panicking about toilet paper. People were hiding inside their houses. And I remember back then, I actually was able to go out of my house in my car to just go around and see what was going on. And like, man, and at this point in time, I was still living in New Orleans, Louisiana. And man, I had never seen the streets so dead in that city in my entire life. It was like I had the whole road to myself. People weren't even leaving their houses. Everything was up in the air, and people were really terrified of this. I don't know if I can use that word, but we'll just say of this thing in the air. Remind you the 3 stages of crypto, the 3 stages of Bitcoin. But its first stage is number go up. The second stage is synchronicity. I guess is the right way to label it. And the third and final stage is Bitcoin is energy, which is like the pseudo scientific stage of it, which is like the enlightenment stage of Bitcoin. And I did have a stream about that. I think I did it on like a Saturday one time. I should redo that. I should redo that stream because it was Saturday morning and I was like tired and uncaffeinated. So, guys, that's what we saw in March 2020. But what else did we see? And you know what? Whether or not you're in here on the live chat or you're watching this on the replay, this may or may not have affected you. I know people personally this affected, but a lot of people were, quote unquote, laid off from their place of employment, right? That had a lot of people like up in arms, people very afraid. And why did that happen? Why did a lot of these companies just go ahead and just start firing people? If you guys go, and I know there's another channel, this guy named Joshua Fluke, and he does a lot of talking about like big corporations and et cetera, and how they treat employees unfairly. But aside from that, I remember one time on his channel, he had actually played like a Zoom call, a recorded Zoom call of one of these companies that went out and basically like got all their employees. I got like several thousand employees on the Zoom call, and they were just like very blatantly like, everyone's fired. We can't afford you guys because the pandemic, and even though it just happened, like it just started yesterday, blah 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 blah. So, and that wasn't the only company, right, guys? There was a boatload of companies that laid off a boatload of people, which is funny because those same companies they didn't go under. They're out desperately looking for employees now. Go figure. Somebody ring the karma bell. And that got a lot of people thinking. They got a lot of people thinking and like, hey, I might have spent like 5, 10, 15, even 20 plus years working for this company as a good little wagey. And they just fired me because they just, at the time, they felt I was useless and everyone was scared. So they did what? What did these companies really just initially do? They did what they thought was the best thing for them at the current time and not for their employees, which, you know, that's human nature, right, guys? That's human nature. And yeah, I'm aware that there are companies out there that are a little bit like less scummy when it comes to that, and they actually care for their employees. And those companies usually tend to do very, very well, believe it or not, because the employees are happier and they're healthier for that matter, at least psychologically. They're not afraid to wake up one day and lose their job, and the employees end up doing a better job and end up getting a better product for the end user. Sam Perchenzi says, Chick-fil-A corporate let me go, as well as 90% of their IT contractors. Yeah, no surprise. Why do companies even like having employees when you can have independent contractors? I think that's got a lot to do with our system and how it's set up and taxes and all that stuff. But Max Nita says, did that company not realize someone would upload the conference call to YouTube? I don't know, dude. Maybe they just didn't even care. Maybe they just did not even care. Sam says, it RP'd me on jobs in general. Yeah. And so speaking of that, Sam, you weren't the only person that ended up getting awoken to the truth on jobs. And the system, really, guys, the system in total is how we know it. And so what exactly happened as a result of all this? There was this thing called the Great Resignation. And basically, guys, this Great Resignation really just consisted of a bunch of people that were either unhappy in their job or felt unfulfilled or felt unsafe in a job, mostly a W-2 job, but I'm sure some of these people were private contractors too, I'm sure. Whatever the job was, they either felt unfulfilled or they realized that the juice just wasn't quite worth the squeeze, and they end up resigning. They ended up to go find bigger, better jobs. They ended up to go do self-employment. They ended up throwing all their money on dog coins and getting rich. Maybe not all of them, but you guys get the point. There was this thing called the Great Resignation. And even to this day, guys, that so-called Great Resignation is basically still occurring. I see it relatively frequently when I'm just out and about doing my daily things. Like, for example, guys, there is a coffee shop right across the street from my condominium, and this is probably one of my favorite coffee shops in the city. It's a chain, and there's plenty of them. There's also this coffee shop also exists in different cities. It's not anything like super great and amazing, but it's pretty good coffee, and it's a nice, like, clean environment to go and work in if you just want to go, work at a coffee shop or have a cup of nice steaming Joe. And basically, they just started reopening recently, and they have the oddest hours. Okay, they're only open from like 10 a.m. to like 1 p.m. when they used to be open basically like from 6 a.m. until like 8 p.m. at night. And they were out of business, you guys, for all of January, February, March, April, and really just like pretty much the first week of May too. Like they just opened up for almost half a year. And I was asking one of the employees or people that used to be an employee there, because they live actually close to me. It's a kid, it's a college age student, and I asked like, hey, why did they close? And they basically told me everyone kept quitting because they were only willing to pay us $7 an hour. And they basically didn't have anybody to work for them because, quite frankly, these kids were smart enough to know that, like, hey, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze at this job. It wasn't worth the squeeze. Harry McGuire says this phenomenon of many people working for a corporation is only like 200 years old from what I hear. Yep. Essentially it is. Not even 200 years, actually. I think a little bit less than that. Ever since factory work became like a thing. Wade Emery says, greetings to you, Josh, and the chat. Wade, greetings to you, my friend. Oof, says Christian Soto. Oof, indeed, my friend. Oof, indeed. Ooficus, indeedicus. So people were in different categories, guys, that either felt like, hey, I'm Karen, I'm working in some kind of like job that, and quite frankly, like is a useless job. And if I'm being honest with you guys, and I know this sounds really harsh, and I've said this on other streams before, like a majority of people, if you go and ask them, the job that they're doing is not like the first thing that they would choose to do. Like if you go back, so let's just talk about Karen in HR. Karen in HR, 45-year-old Karen in HR. You guys know the Karen that I'm talking about. If you guys were to go to Karen and say, Karen, when you were 8 years old, what did little Karen want to be when she grew up? Can almost guarantee you it wasn't to be Karen in HR. And we got to be realistic, right? Because not everyone's going to be the thing they wanted to be when they were 8 years old, right? If I was the thing that I would wanted to be when I was 8-year-old, I would be the president of the United States right now. But I'm not. However, with that being said, the point is, guys, that people realize that a lot of jobs they were working were either just like really just either a useless job, and they just felt like they were filler. They didn't feel any job security, especially after what had happened with the Crab 19 thing, and or the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze, or a combination of all the above, right? And I'm sure there's many other reasons out there that you guys can think, especially if you were somebody who was in this situation, and you probably have your own reasons as well. But the juice not being worth the squeeze thing. So I want to talk about that for a second. So why all of a sudden was it that these wages and salaries that people were getting paid, suddenly people just started to realize or think to themselves, hey, it's no longer worth working here. I know I spent like years here, but literally the amount of money I'm getting is no longer worth working here. Why was that the case? Well, what else happened right around the time of the Crab 19 pandemic? I probably shouldn't have said that word, but anyway, well, the money printer went burr, right? You get a car, you get $1,200, you get $1,200, you get this for free, you get that for free. There was money everywhere. And why was there money everywhere? Why were we getting the USD airdrops directly deposited to everyone's good boy wallets? Well, because there really is no real reason as to why they did. There's no real good reason as to why they did that. But essentially, the government ended up, the Federal Reserve and the government ended up essentially deciding to print this massive amount of money into circulation. And what are the consequences of that? If you guys didn't know, but I'm sure most of you guys do know, the consequences of that are inflation. And you can't just print 80% of, or whatever the percentile of the total amount of dollars in existence in 1 year and expect that not to have an inflammatory effect on prices, because this money is going into people's pockets. It's going into corporations. They're paying more people more money. It's going here to there, in and out of markets, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, when there's more money in the system. There's less of a demand for this thing called money, or really cash, and prices go up. So suddenly, people were realizing that the money that they were getting paid was not really valued at what they were maybe originally getting paid at, even if it was the same rate, if not even a little bit more, in order to go and pay their bills. They just started saying to themselves, like, hey, the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's not worth it to work here. Harry McGuire Jr. says, many people are afraid of making the jump to upskill, do 1099 work, or start their own business. It's very true. Very, very true. And you know what, Harry? A lot of people don't have the ability to do that because they don't really have some kind of skill that they can go and monetize, right? Because we don't really get taught the most useful things in our school system. Prices go up, but never wages unless you learn to code. Yes. Although I do believe wages were going up, but it's like if it costs, and I was listening to a podcast today on this from this channel called Heresy Financial. It's a great channel, by the way. You guys should go and check them out. But he used the analogy I think it was New York, and the average income for a person, or maybe it was a household, was like 50 or 51,000 a year. Let's just say 50. Let's make an even number. And inflation increases prices $4,000 a year more. So, sorry, not the income. The average amount of money that they had to spend to survive was about 50 grand a year. Okay. Inflation basically bumped that up to $54,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, right? But in the scope of things, it actually does end up being a lot of money. And he was saying, yeah, wages went up a little bit too, but wages only went up $2,000, enough to cover that $2,000, that $4,000 difference. And so there's still like a $2,000 difference, which is actually the most difference. The percentage wise, apparently, is the largest percentile difference in this situation since like the 1970s, which is a big deal, guys. It's a big deal. So people decided they can no longer, they can't afford, if they can't afford to live or pay for their basic needs in life, then why are they working for this place if it's just not worth the squeeze? They're literally expending their life energy. And some people say, well, I can't pay my bills. I can't go and do these things that I want to do. I can't save money. And at the same time, I'm losing my time on top of that to go and work at these places. So what the fuck am I doing? Why am I even doing it? I already can't pay my bills. At the very least, what I could do is I could quit my job. I still can't pay my bills, so I'm still in that same situation, but at least I have the freedom to go and do something else or go do something that I want to do. On a serious note, says Harry, the lack of work experience is making the job search process a little hard for me. I am in cybersecurity. Yeah, man. Have you checked out Ryan from Elevate Cyber's channel? He does a lot of stuff with cybersecurity, and he gives pretty helpful tips on that. I could give you like, advice on like what to do and how to help you as far as like tailoring your resume and all that stuff and trying to do the best to get your foot in the door. But I'm not per se in the cybersecurity space. Nestor says the bumping wages is not keeping up with the bump and inflation. Yep. It's true. Everybody feels it, guys. Everybody feels it. Even the people that have money, they feel it too. Trust me. So people were also, it wasn't just the inflation, guys, and it wasn't just the money thing too, right? People were realizing that, like I talked about Karen, 45-year-old Karen HR, that their jobs are most likely, it's a mundane job, and maybe it has no benefit to society, and people didn't want to feel like they were just doing that anymore. Where before they were doing that because at the very least they could pay their bills, right? At the very least they could pay their bills. But after some time, when they realized they couldn't, well, why even work anymore? At the very least, I'm going to have my time back. And, the free government money, the free USD airdrops into people's bank accounts, I think that played a part in this thing too, guys. I know that was like, this is a touchy subject, but whatever, screw it. I do believe that some people, and we already know what, guys, we know that people were getting more money from things like unemployment and all the like extra buffers that they were getting from the free USD airdrops from Uncle Sam, that it ended up being like more money than when they were actually working. in like mostly the service industry. I believe most of this was the service industry. And I know people myself who have literally told me, like, yeah, I was getting more money than I was when I was actually working. They didn't want to go back to work because why the hell would they? That it makes no sense, right? Like, if you guys are going to tell me that, if you, all I have to do is just go to this island and I can just sit on the beach, eat coconuts and lobster all day long, and I'm going to get 10 times as much money doing that than what I do now, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to go do that. I mean, it literally only makes sense. In fact, it would be illogical and make no sense not to accept that offer, right? TBK says, just lie on your resume and make sense with it. You get the job in cybersecurity. Yeah, so I mean, there's a way to do that. There's a way to where you can quote unquote white lie and just kind of tailor and engineer your resume to make it in your benefit to where you don't maybe necessarily have to lie completely, but it shows you in a better light, and it also kind of like pushes your resume into more of an IT, or in your case, cybersecurity context. It's so bad I can't even find a job, find a pilot. It's so bad I can't even find a pilot for my private jet. Okay, could you elaborate on that a little bit? Do you mean add a fake job? Yeah, TBK might want to answer that for you, but I can tell you personally that it's most likely better to change the title of a job that you had and change it ever so slightly to be tailored more towards tech and IT and more towards cybersecurity than what it was. And Harry, I don't know if you saw my stream where I actually did a stream about a resume and how to like update your resume to do that. Obviously, you can't use the exact things that I did, but if you go and watch that stream, Harry, I think you'll get the idea, the gist of it. Danielle says, that sounds nice, even to us pale faces. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, right. I mean, if I'm going to get free money for doing nothing, as opposed to actually having to work and do something that I absolutely hate, which I believe is a more majority of these cases, guys, I believe, why would you not go and do that, right? I mean, maybe there's a moral obligation against that, but we know humans are immoral, right? We know humans are immoral. And so the good 9-to-5 jobs on top of that are actually like really valuable. The ones that are like high paying in that regard, I will say, although they are quote unquote 9-to-5, at least some of them are, not all, but some of them are. So for example, being an engineer, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a carpenter, stuff like that, things that most people can't do, right? Like you can't just give people like, you can't just hire anybody to do that. They have to kind of already know how to do that beforehand, unless you're willing to invest the time to do that. Those jobs are really valued, guys, on the quality and type of work that they are, and not so much the 9-to-5 thing. Whereas these other jobs, a majority of the ones that I'm talking about, it's the inverse, right? Like it's really just more so like how much man hours can you put on there. If you're a server at a restaurant, yeah, obviously some servers do a better job than others, right? Like obviously, I think we've all had a bad and a good and a great and also an awful experience at a restaurant with someone who you could just either tell was just like in a great mood or just clearly didn't want to be there. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's not like it doesn't take complex math to go and like move, take someone's order and put food on a table and ask people if they need anything else and just be polite, right? And I know I don't want to hurt people's feelings with that, but it's just the truth, guys. That's something that you have to accept if you actually want to understand the message that I'm giving you guys today. All the real quote unquote good 9-to-5 jobs, they're not actually getting paid, although it might appear that way for some of them on paper. They're not valued at the time that they're actually working. They might be in a contract where they have to be at a place or do a certain amount of thing for a certain amount of time, but it's really more so the quality of the work they're doing. For example, like an open heart surgeon. I can't just go and get anybody out the street and just pay them $5,000 an hour to do open heart surgery on me, right? I'm going to get an open heart. I'm going to get a doctor who knows how to do that and has done that before and hasn't killed people during that whole entire process. So that is another thing to take into consideration tonight when we're going over this. Okay, guys? So this whole Great Resignation thing, and then also people getting fired before that when Crab 19 happened. This kind of led everybody into remote work. And remote work, it was a thing, and especially if you were in like IT. Like I know, for example, me, I was remote. I was remote at years before I was actually like the Crab 19 thing even happened. And then if I wasn't either at a place that was fully remote, I was in this like hybrid situation where you could be home whenever you wanted, and then no one really cared, and most people did. But after Crab 19, pretty much everybody that did keep their jobs and wasn't in a job that required you to physically be somewhere, at least like, to like wait on tables, right? If you could be remote, most of these companies went totally remote. And that got people realizing after a lot of these companies did it successfully, people realized like, yo, like we have to go when they tried to margin call, when they tried to get these people back in the office via their margin call, people didn't want to go do it, right? They were like, why would we go and do that? Everything was working fine. It makes no sense. Like, if anything, this whole situation just showed us all that we can work from home. So, and at the same time, I get to spend more time with my family, my dogs, my kids, whatever. I don't have to go in a car and waste gas and time driving there an hour every day, an hour back. I don't have to go sit in a cubicle. I can be in the comfort of my own home. And a lot of people, majority of people, I believed, actually preferred that. I know not everybody did, but I think that a majority of people, especially younger people, preferred that. So that actually, when people actually try to get called back into the office, and I'm still seeing this today. I know I got clients who work with people then I know one in particular, his company's trying to slowly bring people back in the office. He's still remote, but every time they do like a new stage, more and more people just fall off. They just quit. And why is that? Well, for one, they got the taste of freedom and they know that it works. And for two, when they see all these other job openings available, because we are in last month, there was 11.5 million job openings in the United States, which is like an insane amount of jobs. And a lot of these jobs, they need to get filled and the companies can't fill them. So what can they do? They can offer more money, but that so much isn't as much of a commodity as being able to be remote. That's a lot more important to people now. And so why would people stay at some place that's going to be not remote when they have a plethora of options that are remote? They're just not, especially guys after they had a taste of the freedom. And so that's what I think we're seeing going on right now, and have been for really well over a year now. But now I believe it's just more prevalent than ever. And I see guys in the future, I don't really think that this whole 9 to 5 go into the office, be a wagey kind of thing is going to be, I don't think it's going to be around at 100 years for sure. I don't think it will be, unless it'll be completely different than it is now. But it just makes no sense, guys. It makes no sense. There is some vested interest in some companies keeping employees in the office because some of these companies, guys, literally have like 5, 10, 15-year leases where they're going to be fucked because they're going to be paying for a building they're not using. So there is some pushback to it, right? And then, let's just put our tinfoil hats on. I don't have the tinfoil hat near me, guys. Let's put our tinfoil hats on. Let's just say there was like a small entity of people in the world who orchestrated all this stuff that happened in the last 2 years, and they did it intentionally. They wanted to really shake everybody up, but maybe they shook it up a little too far, and then now we have a tube of toothpaste, and the toothpaste has fallen out of the tube, and you can't really put it back in the tube. Well, if you consider the toothpaste to be employees and the tube to be going into the office, I think you guys get the analogy. And I think that they're trying to get everything back to the way it was because I think they shook things a little too hard. And I think now it's very hard for them to do that. I don't think that people want to go back. I know people don't want to go back in the office because I have had clients who have come to me specifically because they just straight up didn't even want to go back to a physical office, which is understandable. I do not want to do that either. I never will. I would rather eat bugs, if I'm being quite frank with you. Harry says, Kevin O'Leary says, there is those who scrape stuff off the floor and those who own the store. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. Max says, I think heart surgeons make more than that. LL, $5,000 an hour. Yeah, I mean, shit. Someone's gonna work on my heart. I'm gonna give them more than $5,000 an hour. Please take whatever you want, dude. Just don't kill me. Greg B says, add 9 to the 5 to the list of things millennials have killed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. With your previous dev jobs, ever thought it was, even though it was remote, did you have to stay inside the U.S.? One of them, I know for sure the answer to that would have been yeah, for sure, because it was a governmental job. However, I don't really know. Most of the other ones, I never asked, never thought about leaving the U.S., but I know one of them had people working in Brazil. So, like, I don't think that would have been too problematic, if I'm being honest with you. And some of these places do, some of these places don't. A lot of it's just going to matter on the company and like their legal boundaries. But I have a client right now who's in Germany, and he's trying to work on getting a job in Romania, and he's got 2 places that at first basically told him they couldn't do that legally, but then since they value him so much because of the work that he does, they're working on finding a route around that via maybe doing something like having him be a contractor, whatever they can do to make it legal. So like if you are valuable enough, you get to the point where you're valuable enough, man, you can pick your poison. So guys, like, what if you are one of those people and you feel the same way as me and a majority of other people, and you're like, I don't want to do this whole 9 to 5 thing. I don't mind working for somebody. In fact, I don't even mind working from 9 to 5 p.m. But there's no way I'm going back into an office. What can you do to be safe? So, truth be told, guys, I mean, if you think that a traditional 9 to 5 is like quote unquote safe, well, I mean, the whole Crab 19 thing showed us all that wasn't the case, right? In reality, guys, being self-employed versus working for another person, it's no safer than it is either or, right? If you ask me, and you have the ability to go and get income for what you do, if you ask me, I think that although it might equally be dangerous, you could obviously, if you need to get clients, you could run out of clients. If you're building software, your contract could run dry, and the biggest contract that you're working on, they could go bankrupt, and then poof, you lose like $100,000 a year revenue. And then the other way, the same thing could happen to your company, and they could just fire you, right? But if you ask me, the very least, if you are self-employed, yeah, unfortunately, the same thing could happen, but at least you have the ability to take that into your own hands and to go and do something with it. If it happens to the company, they're not going to they're not going to be like, all right, we lost the client, so we can't pay you anymore. Go and find some new income for us. They're not going to do that. They're just going to poof, fire you, right? So they're both equally safe. And that's something that none of us were taught in college or in high school, although we should have been. I wish I was. My dad's self-employed, and I wish he would have basically explained that to me, but I don't think he knew that was a thing. I don't think he really understood the difference between, because my dad did very good for himself, and he literally owns his own company, and he's done great his whole life. But I think to him that was just like something that just ended up happening to him, and it wasn't like this active thing that he was like, I have to be self-employed. I have to be self-employed. Some people, I knew it from day one, guys. I knew from day one in my first job that was the case. And, when I didn't do it until as soon as I found out, as soon as I got to the point where I was like, okay, this literally is no less safe than banking on a company to take care of you and make sure that they're not going to fire you in case times get tough. As soon as I realized that, I was like, to hell with it. So either or, they're both equally as safe, or if you want to say as dangerous. So what can you do? Well, obviously, some fields are less prone to layoffs than others. So, maybe you do want to be a traditional job. You want to be a traditional W-2 employee. Some fields, guys, they are, we'll just say, more recession-proof than others. For example, my field, tech IT. I'm not saying that to brag or boast. It's a fact. And especially with tech and things like cybersecurity and software development, anything of that nature, like, it doesn't matter if there's economic uncertainty. It doesn't matter if there is a scary thing in the air that you can't breathe and everything has to shut down to where you can't go outside. If what you do is valuable enough, then you're going to get paid for it, because if not, then no one's going to do it. So whatever field it is, it doesn't have to be tech. It doesn't have to be IT. Whatever field that you guys think or believe that is the case. And there's more than just tech and IT, okay? Obviously, the medical field is a pretty big one because, last time I checked, people don't want to die. At least most people don't want to die. Maybe after the price of BTC today, some people do, but you guys will be okay. Let me actually check on that right now while I'm talking to you guys. Oh my God, it's at 0, guys. I'm just kidding. Man, every time I stream, guys, I miss a trade that I could have made. It's all y'all's fault. It's all your stinking faults. So you could choose a different field, or if you haven't, if you're a younger person and you don't know what field it is, that's something you should take into consideration. When I was growing up, everything was all sunshine and roses in the 1990s. Nobody was even worried about that kind of stuff. If I was younger, I wish I would have known that. Other solutions is, you can always have some kind of skill that is either in that situation, it's a more recession-proof skill, or B, at the very least, if you need to be self-employed, you can. And what is that? I mean, a hard skill, obviously, things like software engineering or software developers, carpentry, plumbers, firefighters, mechanical work, guys, literally anything that is a quote-unquote hard skill, which, if you guys don't know what a hard skill is, it's basically anything that not everybody off the street can just go ahead and do, right? It's something that you have to learn to do. So yeah, guys, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of tech. It's not going away anytime soon unless we just run out of electricity forever and ever. I'm in, and everything just stops using software, which I really don't see as a thing that's going to happen. But that's what I always preach, right? And tech is deflationary in nature. So, like, it's always going to be used and it's always going to be needed. And that at the very least, you have the ability to take that power in your own hands and to go seek self-employment or make your own income from it. At the very least, right? What else could you do? Well, I mean, you should have enough money saved to where, like, if something goes bad for like 6 months, at the very least 6 months, that you'll be okay. If that's not the case, well then, like, and maybe not everyone is in the situation to where they can do that, then you need to build yourself up there first. You need to have some kind of game plan to get yourself squared away on that. And obviously the first step is to find something that can pay you so enough to where you can do that. Danielle says, definitely not going back into the office. Agreed. The Rock, it doesn't matter, clip. Trades, yes. Just don't lose $1,000 like I did today on a trade. Tech is the new stable job. Tech is the new stable job than medical field. Yeah. Dip. Yeah, I mean, medical and tech both. See, Gerard, Sam, he's in tech, and he even says medical field too. Because Gerard, I know you came from the medical field, but at least with tech, most places aren't going to try to get you to put something inside of your make you take the ouchie. Most of them, right? Some of them probably would, though. John Dre says it's always going to change, though. What's always going to change? Yeah, different fields are always going to change, but unless all of a sudden nobody's using computers anymore for what they do, which everyone does, including every field, then do you know who makes the software that writes in the computers? People in tech. So that unless that doesn't no longer becomes like a precedent, unless no one's using, unless people stop using computers at their jobs, which, I mean, lawyers, cops, pretty much everything use a computer, right? Unless you stop using a phone, unless you stop using computers. Well, computers run software, so they always need to either be maintained and upkept, or be added to. Hard skills are also something that some people will never be competent enough to do. That's true. But another thing people don't realize is that it's not just about competence. Like, actually it is, but it's not. People think, for example, to be like a software developer, like you have to be super smart. You don't. You just have to be competent. And everybody can be competent. You can become competent, but a lot of that takes people to not give up and not quit, which actually isn't hard. It isn't as hard as people think it is, but believe it or not, for whatever reason, most people just end up not doing that. Tech is the new freedom job, I should say. Yeah. Will there be a Web 4? I don't even know what that will look like. If I'm being honest with you, I'm sure someday in the future they'll say something like, "This is now Web 4," and we'll look at it and we're like, "Wow, that is the new iteration of the internet." But what that looks like now, I mean, I don't even know. Web 3 is still like so freaking new. So, and the same thing, I don't think in like 2005 you were to be like, "Yo, dude, there's gonna be this thing called a blockchain, and that's gonna like be a decentralized computing protocol, and all these companies like Google and Facebook and Meta, they're not going to have your data anymore. It's not going to work like that, man. It's just going to be trustworthy, man. For instance, I'm not cut out for the medical field," says Sam. Yeah, I don't want to be performing open heart surgery on anybody anytime soon. That's for sure. Damn, are we back at 30K? Holy smokes, guys. I always miss the freaking trade for this. Oh my goodness. We are back at 30K. I'm going to go jump off the building. All right, guys. Same as always. Link in the description box below if you want to learn to code, if you want to self-custody your own crypto, but I can't teach you guys how to change your own tire. You might have to go and look for that somewhere else on YouTube. That is it. I love you all, and I will see you all later.